Hello, 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 and welcome to another daily code fun. What is that? One line of code. I am one lion, and this is another fantastic Wednesday. Awesome. Hello, Dukasoft. Konnichiwa, konnichiwa. Moving stuff around on my screens. Getting set up as per usual. I'm also finishing up another request that was just given to me not too long ago by the people that I used to work with, where they had some content on one of their sites that they needed help updating. They still don't have a developer, and they are really, really struggling to get to work with the way things were left. Oh my goodness, Tommy's here. Hello, Tommy. I hope you've been well. He came in just a resub. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh my gracious. Why didn't I hear that? You were supposed to make a noise. Hello, stuff. Make noise when I tell you to make noise. Wolf. Wolf cook. Okay. I should have been able to hear you. Or that. Yum. Weirdness. Very weirdness. It's been so long. I really have been super well. I've been so busy at the new place. I hope things are going great with you too. I am glad to hear that I'm glad to hear that you've been keeping busy. Has it been a good kind of busy? I'm glad to hear that you've been doing well. I heard it. Thank you, Dukasoft. Thank you so much. Did I restart anytime recently? Hello, Mr. Twitchbot. Miss Twitchbot. Non-binary Twitchbot. Twitchbot that does not fall into human-like categories. No, it's running. We're good to go. So hi, welcome to the stream. As you can tell, Tommy, it's been I made a few changes to the format of the stream, where now we have these wonderful little thingies hanging about with the chat on one side and the little AI generated image, which I started getting some ideas about what I can do with that. So if I have a redeem that allows you to generate a new lion, then I can have it use a not stock, but a default prompt, and then it'll generate a new line for us. And then we'll get stuff like this, for example. That one's great. Yeah, so these are not very representative of the types of images that can be generated using Stable Diffusion, but I'm going to choose a better one, like this one for now. Yeah, we can definitely get AI to do some amazing things. Excuse me. Okay, I'm gonna finish once this thing does. Actually, you know what? I can do that on the other screen while we show the main screen. It's I give up. Yeah, I don't know what to call it. um, okay, once I get started with the ums, there's no stopping. So let's just keep going. When last we spoke on Monday, we were working on this financial management tracker application, and we got the accounts summary list, account summary component to display the thank you, Dukasoft. to display the filtered transactions history when you click on an account from the account summary component. And I didn't actually check it in because there were still more things that I wanted to do with it before we check in. But you know what? Let's go ahead and do a minor commit, even though it looks like I touched a lot of files, added new things. Added transaction history flyout and functionality for showing it. Yeah, period. Commit. You're welcome. I'm Umberto is who I am. I'm not welcome. Welcome. I will say once more, things may be changing sooner than I expected, with the stream specifically. But we will continue having fun with Blazor and doing more no doing more software related things with Blazor, with .NET. But for now, we're just going to continue on with our It's Disco. That's what we're going to continue on with our financial management tracker application. So let's see that it works still after it slept for a night or two. And yes, the flyout still does expand and it shows the history for the selected account. And I have it to where you can click anywhere outside of the flyout to collapse it, or the X button to collapse it. One thing that I realized after now having the experience of creating a desktop application using Blazor and kind of like that web mentality of design and development, when you have a close button here, actually show, don't tell. Use your storytelling abilities. If I ran the WPF version, does anyone see the WPF version? If I had $1 million, today would be a great karaoke day. Okay, so if I have a flyout that shows up from the left that has a close button, I'm not going to be able to show because we can't get to this screen because we don't have a service, because we don't have a HTTP client. So let's add a HTTP client real quick. I just did a commit, so we may as well inject a HTTP client. Yeah. Something like services add HTTP client factory, add HTTP. I'm just going to copy it from Blazor Wasm. Just add HTTP client. It is. Okay, so it might be that this doesn't have a reference to a NuGet package that can use a HTTP client, which doesn't make sense. Interesting. So this one doesn't just do add HTTP client. That's weird. I totally thought that it really was just add HTTP client, but no. We're going to get a new HTTP client every single time that we request it. Or not, yeah, maybe. I don't know. And then we don't have a host URI. So because we are just in dev anyway, I'll want to clean this up later. But I'm going to manually put the URI. And then we're going to add cores. Hi, Scott. Hi, Scott. Hi, Scott. I hope you're doing well. Blood trail. Ugh. Ah. He looks kind of like meat man, meat boy, meat something. Um, I'm just going to provide the URL for the API directly, which that's not how you get to it. Choking on peanuts. It's going to be HTTPS 7176. I don't know a better way to do this for WPF applications that communicate to an API. But that also means that in the API, I need to add cores and allow origins, which I'm doing. Cool. So this 0000 is what the WPF application will be running on. And so I don't know if there's a way for me to start the API server without starting the WASM front end, but that's fine. We'll have the WASM front end running too. Okay, let's see if our efforts are paying off, and we now have a HTTP client that can be used with our servicio. What did I just do? And the answer is we have a transaction state, which probably means we have a transaction service, which probably means the HTTP client was injected correctly. Only visible to you. You sparked. Oh, yeah. You sparked a watch streak. I don't know where those are coming from. New achievements in Twitch to gamify it and make you feel like you are required to do these things. Otherwise, you're going to miss out. And I can't stand that. I don't want people to feel like they're missing out if they are unable to come to a stream because they're busy, don't feel like it, or whatever reason they have. It's completely optional. And while I enjoy your company, there should be no feeling of obligation. Okay, anyway, here's the point that I was trying to get to. You're in a desktop application. Why aren't my dev tools? Excuse me. If debug, add Blazor Web Developer Tools. So why is F12 not giving me my tools? Control I? Nope. What time is it for me? It is 10:43. You stream when I get home from work, so that's good. 12? Anyone? Yeah, I don't know why my dev tools aren't showing up. But anyway, what I was trying to do is style this collapse button for the flyout menu to look like most likely the way that I would want it to look. So we'll put it over here so you can still see it, except it's not going to let me just drop it there without my smart snapping zones. And then we will go into the flyout component, which is probably in our shared components. Flyout, CSS, close button. We'll say it has background color transparent or just background transparent, just for now. Border none, and color var primary text color. Is that what I called it? Carrot color. That's exactly what I was trying to set. Thank you. Jerk. Sass. Don't give me no sass. Root. Primary text color. Primary text color I. You're 7 hours ahead of me. Oh, so you are 1 hour ahead of UTC. UTC +1. I don't know that I'm going to remember that. Can't promise you anything. UTC +1 sounds familiar. Oh, why didn't that hot reload update this thingy? That almost looks like it has styling elsewhere. You know what would be really nice is if this thing let me F12 on it to get the web developer tools. Oh my goodness. You are Central European time. What is CET and UTC? UTC +1. Deduction for the win. Okay, so that definitely did update the style as I wanted it to. Maybe it's a little bit small. So let's do font size 0.8. Update. Hot reload. Oh yeah, hot reload doesn't really work very well without .NET Watch. That didn't actually reload the styles. Excuse me, Masen. Oi. At least I have DevTools here. Man, I really got to stop eating those meal bars before streaming. But it's the only time that I have to grab a snack. I guess I could grab it right before daily meeting. Okay, font size 0.8 currently. Oh yeah, it is 0.8. It's just that 0.8 is really small. So what do we want? Font size 1. Font size 1.4. 1.4 looks reasonable. 1.2. 1.2 looks even more reasonable. So there are a few things that I want to talk about regarding my choice of using rems for just about everything instead of really using ems. We're going to see some fun stuff happen. I'm probably going to break the stream doing it, but I would like to call to our attention as a developer community some features that are available in the operating system. In Windows specifically, I don't know what it is like in Mac, that should be considered when making your application, and it's something that I'm working on right now for my work product. We're trying to run this. No, whatever, set a startup project. Do the thing. I don't need you. Go away. Okay, so when you are, oh, yeah, and the other thing is having the title bar be the same color as the main background color. So in our app, we have a side drawer that does fly out, and that side drawer has had its own collapse button, and that collapse button was pretty much right underneath the application close button. And so for whatever reason, users had been submitting, not for whatever reason, it makes sense to me why, but users were submitting tickets saying when I try to close the side, I don't know what they call it in their tickets, but when I try to close the flyout, the app closes instead. And it's like, that's not actually the close button. That's not the collapse side drawer button. And so having them both there is just kind of confusing. So I moved it over to here. So how about we do that? Let's move the collapse side drawer button to the middle left, and then it'll have to move over to the middle right when we do right to left of the side drawer itself. Jeffafa. Oh yeah. So that wasn't very helpful. Last Friday, it was either Friday or Monday. We went to LinkedIn and everyone saw my LinkedIn stuff and um oh, it Phil went out. Okay. Um anyway, we were all like yeah, it was on Friday. We were all connecting to each other on LinkedIn and Solo Solipsist was here in the stream. And so he was connecting with us too, which was awesome. He works on mixed reality type stuff, specifically HoloLens, which, if you guys know me, you know that I am really, really interested in HoloLens development still. I just haven't done much with it because time. So, anyway, he connected with us, and someone in chat asked, "Who's Jeff?" And I'm like, "Oh, Jeffrey Paget, Broken Sword." That's who Jeff is, guys. But it turns out Solo Solipsis' name is also Jeff. So I don't know which Jeff it was that friended you. But you'll see a guy with a HoloLens as a profile picture for whoever was asking who's Jeff. Again, really cool guy. Really cool stuff on his stream. I love that technology. I hate the head mounted device, but we really don't have anything different from that at the moment. And I have no idea how you would implement AR without some kind of visor, including glasses. Like making them small form factor, yeah, that'd be really cool if we can do it. But for now, we get a big headset. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what it does. It does project images onto your iris to make it feel like you're receiving the image from the specific distance, if I recall correctly. It uses it uses light wave technology. It was either this one or the Magic Leap that does it. But it essentially bounces light around inside of the lens and then shoots it into your iris, as opposed to just projecting light onto a reflective screen kind of thing. Where is poor Alex? Where is the picture that I want to find? Anyway, there's some image. Yeah, let's try the Magic Leap. I guess Magic Leap 2 now is out. But anyway, it's a way to be able to send the appropriate amount of light into your sorry, not your iris, your pupil, so that you can see even without glasses, without corrective lenses. I mean, you'll still need corrective lenses for the rest of your environment, but as far as the light that gets sent to you from the device itself, it should be in focus for your eyeballs in a specific. I don't know where that picture is. It's something like this. I'm looking for a picture that looks like this, but it's showing the inside of a lens. But that's okay. You guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I agree. Like, I haven't even put my HoloLens on in a really long time. I guess I can't really say it's because I haven't had time. There are multiple factors for that. One is I never really felt like I was making progress. Like, I would pick up Unity a little bit, and then I would start using the MRTK to do the tutorials and do the Microsoft Learn stuff, which I'm usually pretty confident in being able to follow a tutorial, repeat the tutorial on my own, do the whole process that I normally do with tutorialing until I learn the concept, and the the HoloLens stuff just was not sticking. It's kind of like when I tried to understand NoSQL databases. It's just my brain. My brain doesn't do the thing. Why are you guys so far away? Come here. Water. Oh. Okay, so let's style this thingy here. To do that, we need to run the app with .NET or, just kind of push buttons. There. Let's scoot you over here. Collapse you. Scooch. Find ourselves the flyout.razor.sass. Sassy. Shared components. And here's our close button. So we will make since the flyout itself is position fixed, flyout content wrapper. Dang, does that mean that the button is not actually in the content wrapper? It is not in the oh yeah, it is. It's in the content wrapper. Okay, so we're going to, since the content wrapper is position fixed, there are two things that are going to happen. Number one is if we go into a language, and we don't have that in our app yet, but we should really consider this. If we go into a language that is right to left, we want to swap the side that the flyout comes out of, which means that I actually need to apply a right to left class that I can see in my flyout. So I would want something like flyout and right to left class so that I can say flyout content instead of you being right 0, we'll do right unset left 0. And then once we do the button, we will also have it flip sides as well, because we're going to position the button absolutely relative to its parent container. And the absolute that we're going to put on the button, instead of being top 0.4, right 0.4, we're going to do top 50% left, or yeah. I don't know. I don't have a problem with using negative units. Right, that's how I did it last time. Never mind. I was going to say I would position it specifically, left 0, to be left negative whatever the width of the button is. But I don't want that. I want it to be left 0, and then I want it to shift left 100% of the button's width, which means that it still needs a background. You're going to need your background now, friend. And then we'll style it better, make it look pretty, and all that fun stuff. Because we're good UI developers. Yup. Why doesn't it look like it is? Well, it's really hard to tell because the flyout. Let's give it a border of 0, Zero top. I don't know. Does this thing do top and bottom? Like, do I have to specify all of them? One pix. Solid. Var. Do I have a border CSS variable? Glow. Border glow. Yeah, let's just do card border color for now. Oh my goodness. Stop giving me extra stuff when I don't want the extra stuff. That way we can find the edge of it. Excuse me. Excuse me, I said that way we can find the edge of it, which means that we should see a border. Oh, it's there. It's really faint. Right, because the you know what? This is in a shared component library, which means that I can't use CSS variables. I need default values in here to make it look good and then allow the user to change the colors themselves, override the colors. Whatever. We'll just do white, just so we can see it. Okay, so we can see the border now. And we'll just do border left and right. We will. I promise we will. That way we don't get the top and bottom borders. We'll put some padding in this thing. Let's do something like 0.4. What I meant was 0 top and bottom and 1 left and right. Okay, good. So now let's do this button. It didn't look like the button was all the way pushed up against the left edge, but I was wrong. So to get the button where I want it to be, we're going to do transform, translate, and we're going to go negative 100% in the X direction and negative 50% in the Y direction to get it centered vertically and then hugging the left edge. And also, we're going to allow it to go inside of the border just barely. So let's do a calc negative 100% plus the size of the border. And finally, let's change the height and width. So we'll do a padding of 0, height of 2 rems, and a width of 1.2 rems. Pretty. That's disgusting. Oh, maybe I don't need that extra 1 pixel. So what I was making sure happened is when the border slices down into the oh, thank you so much, Axel. When the border slices down into the button itself, it is fully getting covered by the button, which it's not. And it could be that the button no longer has a border. And let's set border radius to 0. Yeah, I think I do need to still move it over a pixel. But yes, thank you so much, Axel, for the compliment. I hope you're having a great day, a fantastic day. If you haven't heard what we are doing in this stream, we're working on a project called Financial Management Calculator. Yeah, it went in too far. It's almost like we need to only go on half a pixel, but I don't want to use that. which I learned more about unit. Stop saying. So welcome in. It is a Blazor full stack .NET web development project that we're just having fun with. We are enjoying ourselves, trying to do the full process of a real project beginning to end, including the design phase at the very beginning, including UI development work, including database design. What do you, oh, I left it running. Try again. There it goes. And so what used to happen is I was able to stream my entire day job, which was working in Blazor as well, but then I got a new job and I'm not able to stream the work that I'm doing for the new company. But I still wanted to be able to stream and I still wanted to show Blazor. So that is what we are doing with this. And also, this is a project that I've really wanted to do for myself for a long time. Right now, I have an Access database that I track all of my financial spending and savings in, which uses forms and stuff. I really want to make a shallow copy of it. Is it very different from MVC or Razor Pages? I think it is most, if you're using Blazor WebAssembly, it is most similar to MVC, and I'll show you why. And then if you're using Blazor Server, it is most similar to Razor Pages, and I'll show you why. So unfortunately, my project is not super simple as far as the project structure because I'm doing the two existing flavors of Blazor, which are Blazor WebAssembly, which allows you to write a front-end application that can be run in the browser on a .NET runtime that is WebAssembly. And then you can optionally have an API backend that you can communicate with from the front end application. So this server here, just think of it as an API project, a .NET API. But because I've tied it directly to the WebAssembly project, then when I start the API, it's actually serving the initial package needed to run the WebAssembly version of the application. But as soon as the browser downloads the WebAssembly version of the application, it's one of these. It's one of these. Oh, cache. So this is the entire application here. This is like if you took the application, downloaded it to your computer, and ran the .exe. Except it's happening in the browser, and so it's sandboxed to this browser session only. And it's running in .NET in the browser, as opposed to just serving one page, you interact with it, JavaScript does stuff, and then you go to another thing. The only thing that JavaScript was used for at the very beginning is loading the .NET runtime. That is very similar to how an MVC application is structured, where you have your view. Let me collapse everything. Where you have your views. So instead of having a views folder, you pretty much have an entire project for your views. Then you have a controllers folder, which is this API, which just has API controllers as opposed to just regular MVC controllers. And then you have models, which you get for free. They give you a shared project, but this is essentially your models folder in an MVC project type. And so you have kind of these three separations of concern where you have models, views, and controllers. And then you have some method for having the front end communicate with the back end. I'm using a HTTP client. You could do stuff like using SignalR, gRPC, other types of WebSockets. So that's how Blazor WebAssembly is similar to MVC. Blazor server being similar to Razor pages is more that the actual application itself is fully running on the server. Sorry, this isn't server only. The application itself is fully running on the server, and whenever you do interactions with the application, you can directly interact with server resources from the application itself. And so, for example, I am getting stuff from a database using a services type architecture where I have account services that do everything with the database for accounts, lookup items, transactions, all of those stuff. And these transactions here are like financial transactions, not like database transactions. So all of these interact directly with the database or file system or any server resources that I want. And this is used directly by the server-only version of the application. In order for us to do that with the WebAssembly version or any other client-side user interface version, we are using a middleman, a HTTP client, like I mentioned, that implements exactly the same service interface, but instead of interacting with the database directly, it does a HTTP request to the API, and then the API is the thing that does all of the database interactions. And really, the only thing that the API controllers do is forwards the request to the appropriate service method. So as far as being very different, not so much if you architect it in a way where you have a layer that does all of your core logic, a layer that gets all of your requests, and then a presentation layer, aka models, views, and controllers. Quite welcome. Feel free to ask any questions you want. If you have questions that I'm not able to answer, we also have a Discord full of friendly, amazing people that can provide further information. And if you have knowledge of your own that you want to share with us, please do. I'm always looking for anyone that is helpful in that way. Always grateful for that. Yeah, no pressure, but the invite is there if you feel like joining. Okay, so we just restyled the collapse button for our side drawer, which again, I want to improve on the UI stuff, but right now we're just focused on functionality. So this is going to be good enough for now. The main takeaway with this is that we do have our filtered transaction history list based off of the clicked account summary. The thing that we ran into, and I just now remember, the thing that we ran into at the end of the stream on Monday was when you are trying to, let's say, mark this savings record as pending. What's supposed to happen is this will update here, and because this is exactly the same component, it should have updated here. So this savings starting balance should have also updated, but it didn't. Instead, I need to refresh to see that update. The good news is, because the flyout hasn't loaded yet, if I make the change here, oops, that was checking, nice try, then we'll immediately see it here. However, my guess is if we have loaded the content into the flyout and we collapse the flyout, I believe the content still exists and it doesn't reinitialize to re-get our transaction history unless we're switching account. If I were to set it as pending again and check here, oh, it updates. Okay, that's good. Wait, no, it doesn't update. Sorry, we are currently pending, and this thing shows that we have a posted date, so not pending. I want to get that to update correctly. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to make sure that we have a listener on our transaction state so that anytime one of these transactions are updated, we get a message to this transaction history grid as well as this transaction history grid. So let's do that after we check in our minor commit for setup HTTP client. Yeah, we'll stage this one. Set up HTTP client in WPF app. And this other change was restyled close collapse button for flyout. I've been meaning to just commit locally until we're done with all of our changes and then push, but that's fine. All right. So I said we were going to get the communication to work between this transaction history grid and this transaction history grid. Right now, it does work between the account summary. So the account summary is just a sum of all of the amounts by account. So you can see here it shows that I have a pending of negative 2632 monetary units for checking, and that is because of this one. And so if we mark that as having had been posted onto, how do we have a date? Oh, never mind. I know how dates work. Of 2/22, 2023. Then we will immediately see that there is no longer a pending balance on my checking because this thing was listening. So we're just going to use that exact same logic for the transaction history grid as well. Well. Oh, wrong one. Cancel. Cancel. Deleted. So let's do it. Stashes. Stashes. I don't think we're using those. I hate having pending stashes that I'm like, do I really need to keep those? Because we are up to date. We don't have, oh, we have a ton of branches. Excuse me. Excuse me. Why are these still showing that they're connected to origin? Didn't I delete them after we, yeah, didn't I delete them after we did the PRs? Son of a. Stamina. Anyway, let's just close stuff until we get what we want, which is, I said we're going to close stuff until we get to what we want. Instead, I'm going to look for it in this list of things that are open. Unavailable until 12:30. I have a status message on my Zoom that indicates when I'm available and when I'm not available. And I keep it up to date. And I still get calls when I'm not available. I don't get it. Okay, so anyway, it's these two transaction histories. Don't mind me. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Are the only ones that we want to keep, so we're going to close all except for those. Like a magic. Oh. Yeah. So in our transaction history grid, this is where we want to listen for transaction history item changes, which we do. Interesting. So does updating the pending status not actually count as a transaction history changed? According to our summary, account summary component, Ooh, my tongue feels weird. It is transaction history changed. Refresh account summaries. So even though I'm calling invoke async status changed, I'm not actually updating the list of transactions with the latest information. What should happen is when we change the pending state for a given transaction, ooh, which is only in transaction state, dialogue. I don't remember where this is. It's in a transaction history row. Right. And that is base transaction history row. This architecture, I'm telling you. So confusing. Okay, so we're going to show the toggle pending dialog. And when we commit the toggle pending dialog, we're either setting it to not have a posted date if it has one, or give it the posted date that we just entered in the combo or in the input field, making sure that it's a valid entry, etc., etc. But once we make that change, we do this update transaction async for the cloned version of the object. That way we can undo it if we were not successful, or yeah, if it wasn't successful, period. If it was successful, then we patch the existing transaction record that is in memory. So that means we don't need to go back to the server to requery for all of the transactions. We are keeping our transactions that are in memory up to date with the actions that we're taking. So why then on change are we not getting display transactions, get sorted transactions, transactions? Wait, what is underscore transactions? Okay, transactions is get all of our transactions from transaction state. That is the thing that's getting updated here. So this transaction is one of the transactions from transaction state. Should be a reference to the same object. So why isn't a state has changed causing this to requery? We'll see if we hit this get sorted transactions method a second time. So let's attach debugger. Make it do the debug. Yes. Porfa. We still have the WPF app. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the same functionality. The joy of doing it this way is I have one UI that all of the, oh, I forgot to tell you that. If you're still listening, Axel, there's definitely no requirement for you to tune in. If you're busy, please stay busy. Don't let me interrupt you. But we have a WPF application. We have a Maui application, which Maui is another technology from another project type from Microsoft that allows you to write cross-platform applications and compile to those target platforms using one project. And then WPF has both WPF and Maui are not web technologies. They are application technologies, is what I want to call them. I'm making these words up as I go, by the way. So what that means is the UI that we're using is a web technology. It is something that generates HTML and presents HTML to the user, rendered HTML. And so in order for us to use that same library in these projects that are intended to be for desktop, mobile, Mac, etc., we're using a thing called Blazor WebView, which is a WebView 2 control for WPF WinUI 3 applications. It might be for more than WinUI 3. More than just WinUI 3 is what I meant to say. But the version that I'm using is specific to WinUI 3. So you can see this control here, and it essentially just loads the Blazor. It's actually loading the full .NET runtime instead of what Blazor WebAssembly does, which is a version of the runtime that was compiled to WebAssembly. This is actually giving us the full access to the .NET runtime, which is awesome to think about. And I'm using the exact same user interface project to generate the UI for desktop, mobile, Mac, Tizen. Yeah. Mobile being Android and iOS, as well as the web versions. So that's why I'm okay with running the application using the WPF project, which I accidentally had set as my startup project, and having all of this work the same. No, I said it's going to work the same. I didn't say it was going to crash. Right, I don't have the API running. Anyway, more reason to just go ahead and set this as my startup project. That's weird though that it crashed instead of handled the error. I was pretty sure that we set the client side service to handle HTTP client. Yeah, HTTP client errors. Shared client transaction entry. No, we don't. Not for the gets. Interesting. So the only time that I'm handling the errors is when I'm doing puts and posts and delete. I really need to do error handling in the gets. In the gets. Okay, anyway, so now we have it running here, or there. So we're gonna hit this once. We are going to hit it. I wasn't expecting to hit it a second time, a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time. Oh, you know what? Hello, Master Rat. Oh my goodness. So many cool friends showing up today. How are things going? Oh, kind and wise one. So here's what probably the issue is. No, just kidding. I was going to say I probably have an early out, and Solo Solipsist is here. Oh my goodness, so many cool people. I hope you're well as well. I was talking you up earlier. You're working on all of the HoloLens stuff. I saw you doing, like, you're kind of jumping around a lot, so I'm not exactly sure what you're working on. Um, I know that it's a lot of learning, and it's stuff that I want to do. I know those things. But I saw you working with markers a little bit, if I recall. AR markers. I know that you were doing a lot with spatial anchors, but I think I saw you working on what are you working on? Yes. The thing that I thought was happening up here is that I had an early out where if we were already displaying the transactions um, don't refresh it. And that is kind of what's happening. But it's not, because it's still like if I don't have any columns that I'm sorting by, then it at least returns the query to get the rest of the columns. Then it to lists it to materialize it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't to list it. It iterates over it right around here. Oh, wow. This is why it's doing the get so often. Let's fix this real quick. All right, brain, brain. Yeah, and so I keep saying solo that, and again, if you are busy, definitely just feel free to hang out and chillax. Um, but I was talking about my experience with trying to learn HoloLens development specifically. So I want to do AR development in general, but I was really, 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 really excited about HoloLens and the way that it works and just how crisp it is and how far the technology has come. And then the MRTK was out, and it's like, wow, I just have this thing where I can slap in a control or some kind of uh, visual element and create a scene and do stuff. But I have very little experience with doing Unity development, so I hit the wall of needing to learn Unity first. Then I hit the wall of trying to just understand how to do any kind of we're now, because we're doing spatial computing, because we're doing creating experiences that you need to take into consideration the environment of multiple sizes. Then I quickly got overwhelmed because my brain likes to try to imagine all of the possible scenarios at the same time. So I'm like, I know what I want for an app, and I'm going to say it out loud because I hope somebody makes it. I want to eventually create an IDE that you can use in augmented reality or even virtual reality for creating augmented and virtual reality applications. I would love like Unity and AR would be great. Yeah, that's what I thought. And I hear that a lot. And I watch a lot of Unity developers to try to pick up tips and tricks from them. Be familiar with the IDE itself or with the engine itself. And I have gotten used to it. But now it's just the whole when I'm putting together an app, if I'm going to do Blazor, I know the design approach. I know how to structure my project. I know how to sketch out the screens that I want, set up the database. With Unity, I still don't even know how to use shared libraries. So if I wanted to set up a service architecture for a Unity project, no idea how to do that. Plus, the concepts of using a lot of static classes and properties and fields and stuff is like you have this concept of game manager, and it's just really difficult for me to stuff everything into this game manager for setting up the entire environment essentially. And then you have stuff like, how do I even get it to communicate with the internet? How do I get like I followed the Azure Spatial Linkers tutorial, which sounded like they're just trying to sell Azure products. And I'm like, is there a way for me to do this with my own local network and just have my geo database essentially be local? Because I don't need anything outside of the house. Yeah. Stuff like that, you know? So I just kept feeling like I was trying and then falling on my butt and not really learning anything. But I'm not done trying. I'm definitely going to keep trying. I've just, I'm ashamed to say, but not really ashamed to say it. I keep getting pulled into the whole stable diffusion, generating images. And I actually started writing again, which is so much fun. Oh, I love writing. Yeah. Anyway, so I've been doing things outside of learning AR dev. But that's still going to be my, yeah, it is. It's still going to be my primary focus, though. It's going to be AR or just any kind of virtual technology. That said, that said, where were we? Oh, we're listening for some things. So I'm constantly calling that method, and really, I just want to know. Oh man, oh man, I kind of don't want to do that either. Hello, Gomitarka. How are you? So if I did this, then my .any wouldn't apply to the sorted filtered list of transactions. Man, maybe I can do this. So we know that displayed transactions will be null if transactions is null. So we can always show the loading in that case. Else, inside of this block, we will have our one query to the displayed transactions. Ooh, which we know will not be null because if underscore transactions is not null, the displayed transactions will not be null. It might be empty, but definitely not null. And then here's where we can do the check for if this thing here, oh, and then we can also to-list it, materialize it so we don't have to query again. If this thing here, if not this dot any, then we display our no transactions message, else iterate through our materialized list, which is not null, display the values, get an extra curly brace. Oh, hello, greenish pepper. That was my eyes played tricks on me with your name. Hello, greenish pepper. Gomitarka says, do you remember about me or not? I've been here like 5 or 6 times since December 2021. I can look you up on my list if you want. But yes, I do remember your name, at minimum. Let me see if I can figure out what I remember about you by my notes. I remember that you showed up on December 22nd, 2021. Well, let me tell you, absolutely, please feel free. So I stopped recording. So I have a notepad that just essentially says who I've seen and when I saw them. So these are people that I have seen and when I have seen when they showed up. I kind of stopped doing that. Unless you are wanting me to remember something about you, then I'll update an entry in here. First time I was here, I didn't know programming, and now I am a dev. As in, I have a dev job. Congratulations! That is absolutely awesome to hear. I am really happy for you. Is it going well? How are you feeling about the job? Inquiring minds want to know. Okay, that was one thing, by the way. While you're typing that out, it's hard, but I'm happy. Great, great. I like challenging work. I don't like challenging people that I have to work with. I would prefer for the challenge to be in the job and not in trying to figure out how to work with people, you know? But I mean, it comes with the territory. So you get used to it, I guess. Or I haven't gotten used to it, but whatever. That's not a phrase that I use. You don't get used to it. It is just something that you will either do something about or live through. The hard part is understanding what they want me to code. Yeah, not the actual coding itself. Definitely getting the requirements from the client, from project managers, and communicating with teammates is a big part of working in a team. If you are working solo, then definitely communication with the client to know what they want. Solo says, in my experience, eventually all jobs evolve into people challenges. Kind of feels like it. I can't say that all do, but it does feel like it. Have I tried third party components library? Yes, I have. But it was a long time ago. When I was first doing Blazor at my previous job, it was just coming out. And I didn't fully understand how components worked, how things communicated with each other, like just the whole component process, because I hadn't done React, I haven't done Angular, which are similar concepts. And so I was just fully unfamiliar with writing UI this way, with doing web development work this way. I was used to you make a request to the server updates data and then sends back rendered HTML. That HTML is for the most part static, but you can use JavaScript to manipulate it so that you don't have to refresh the page every time, kind of stuff. But, and then I knew about using partials as well, but I still just wasn't like, you create this one small part of the page in a different file. So let's say this account summary card, or just card in general. You create this card that you can use anywhere and populate with whatever information you want in it. So that was even blowing my mind at that stage. So because I didn't know a lot about that, I'm like, okay, can I find examples of other people doing these types of projects? Because I learn by reviewing other people's code, by tutorialing, by doing it myself, and banging my head against a wall until I fail and then eventually succeed. So I found a whole bunch of really cool resources, one of them being the Radzin, Blazor.Radzin component library. That was the right place. Where they had all of these, and it wasn't as robust as it is now, but it was still pretty robust. They have all of these components that are already prepared that you can just somehow get a hold of, NuGet, and then slap into your project. And then everything just works. But then I'm like, okay, so now I want to be able to, and again, early on, now I want to be able to customize how the content is displayed in this grid. I couldn't figure that out. I want to have, very specific things that I want to target and style differently and functionality changes. And it was really, really hard for me to work with third party component libraries and customize it to the degree that I needed it. So, one major one was drag and drop type stuff, which I don't know. I still don't know if very many people have a drag and drop type of component or a query builder. Um, I'd be interested to know. Layout. Anyway, I really needed a drag and drop functionality in the application where you can build a query like a text. What are they called? Search term by using a drag and drop UI kind of thing. And so I eventually created one myself, and that was my first attempt at figuring out how components really worked. Blazor component. Oh, sorry. OneLine.github.com Blazor component library. And so this drag and drop thing here was the experiment of trying to figure out, okay, how does creating a component work? A component with multiple child components where each of these children is not necessarily driven by the same type of data. It's not just a list of string that controls the items that are in this list. It could be some complex object, like an actual search query term. And I wanted to be able to nest when you drag over other things and unnest when you undrag. And then I had all of these like or conditions when you group things together. And it does actually create an appropriate search term, except for this last one. Why are you empty? Why are you even there? Go away. No, this is like terrible. If you look at the code for this, there is no understanding it. So I went to somewhere like Dev Express, and that was where I started learning how to put together components. So Dev Express has a bunch of YouTube videos where they do tutorials and stuff. So I was learning little by little. And then I tried the Dev Express library because I'm like, hey, you know what? You guys have been helping me a lot. So why not try out your actual component library? Yep, exactly. Blazor Train. Um, and then it's like, well, you have to pay a premium if you want to use this in certain types of applications. And I'm like, okay, so I'll just stick to creating my own component library. So then I did. So for my work product, I ended up creating my own component library, github.com. And again, these are rough. These are not cleaned up, not super as cleaned up as you will find in a professional component library, but they did everything that I needed them to do. So I created all of these components here to help with that. I also have a Esri ArcGIS wrapper component that I didn't put in here, but it doesn't matter because there is now an amazing component library that does wrap Esri maps. Oh, it's gonna be great. Anyway, so the long answer to your question is yes, I have tried third-party component libraries, and I still prefer to make my own components. Not only do I prefer to make my own components, but I prefer to make them every single time that I encounter them. Not because I'm trying to reinvent the wheel, but because I'm trying to learn more and maybe find a different implementation that works better using the knowledge that I have at the time I'm trying to create the component. So, for example, I have a card component here that I thought was pretty robust. It works pretty well, but I went ahead and created a new card component for this project specifically. And it is different than the way that I did this one here. And so it might be inefficient to do that, but for me, it's because I'm using it for learning, therefore, it has a lot of value for me. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. And also, it's kind of fun to do. I don't know if you've ever just sat down and said, I want to modal, I want to modal, and then you kind of create your own component, and then you reuse it in like 60 different places, and you're like, wow, I just did that. That was fun. Yeah, at least you aren't screwed when the dev stops updating the component. Yes, I am. But yeah, like all of the component libraries that I looked at didn't have open source components. The closest you got was a couple tutorial videos from either DevExpress or Syncfusion or Radzen. Either or, one of those three. I'm making fun of myself, sorry. I will stop that. But it was fun. Anyway, I got quiet really fast. So, what I'm wanting to figure out is why come my underscore transactions, which shouldn't be an underscore transactions because it is a get only. Why this here is not giving me a new IEnumerable here when I'm returning transactions.orderby.toList, or not even .toList, just .orderby. You would think, yeah, I'm gonna put the breakpoint here and here, which is kind of the same as putting it there. I was just too lazy because I don't want to have to F10 to get past that. So here we go. Here we go. Actually, now that I have said that the displayed transactions is not null explicitly, why not just make sure of that in the code behind? Let's make sure that this thing never returns null, because this is the thing that drives the displayed transactions. That means using enumerable.empty of iTransaction of this. No, pasta. And we will never return null from this. Therefore, displayed transaction is never null. Therefore, we don't need a null forgiveness operator over here because it is never null. And so we're checking for if transactions, well, I guess, never mind. It's just never null. If transactions is null, then this is still going to be an empty list, an empty enumerable. Cool. Good. Okay, so I still want to know why this thing is giving me the same list of transaction rows. Did we hit the breakpoint? No, it's just taking forever. This one we don't care about because we know that it works. So we have our transaction history. And this time it only hit that breakpoint twice. Still don't know why it needed to hit it twice though. So now when I open this side drawer, it hits it one more time, but this time the transactions is filtered by the account name, which is null. That's a lie. Oh, that must have been the other transaction history grid. This one must be the transaction history grid that is open in the side drawer. Okay, so my checking, and that's why we have this filtered list. So if I make an update to a record in this transaction history grid should also try to refresh the data. This is the one that has, I really just need to bring account name down there. No account name, which should mean, oh, I said come with me. Which should mean that this is the account summary that is on, or the transaction history grid that's on the main page. It is trying to get the requery the list of transactions from transaction state, which should include the new transaction that has the there it is, the modified record, which is for my checking that has a new posted date of 1/1/2022. That's not possible. Oh, that's date entered. Never mind. I was like, the posted date can't be greater than the transaction date. Try again. All right. Transaction date of 2/22/2023. Credit charge. Credit charge. Credit charge. Credit charge. Credit charge. Credit charge. Checking. Transaction date 2/20 with a posted date of the updated posted date. So this list, the test date transaction history list, was updated correctly. The UI, and then this one is the one for the flyout. So the UI should be updated. Yes. For that date. We did it. We did it. And now if I set it to pending, nothing happened. We should have hit the breakpoint, but we didn't. So changing a record from having a posted date to pending does not fire the transaction history updated event. Why? Pero por qué? Confirm toggle pending. Notify transactions changed here. No notify transactions changed when we are removing the date. So if not was error, regardless of what happens, notify transactions changed. That should do it. Okay, have a great, fantastic, wonderful rest of your day, Gomitarka. May the work be challenging and the people be easy to work with for you in your endeavors. Okay, so we will re-add the posted date, which we hit the breakpoint for both the one that is in the side drawer that is for a specific account and the one that was down there for all accounts and purposes, and I just hit refresh. Summon a biscuit. And it's taking forever to refresh. Thank you. And it's gonna hit the breakpoint like 6 times now. Okay. Show the side drawer. Hello, live coding. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you. Gosh, so much love. So much fellowship of the ring. For the rest of us, he hopes that our toil is difficult and the people harass us. That's how I wrote it anyway. Of course, because you know my personality. It's always to wish the worst. It wounds me that you think this, live coding. I feel it in my gut. My very soul is distressed. Actually, is there a way that I can show this record? Well, yes, I can. So keep your eyes on this date here when I remove it from here. Oh no, Z-index. We had a Z-index issue with the this thingy. So we need to make sure that any modals are on top of the flyouts. Oof. Oof. And on top of the elements for flyouts too. Okay, moving on. Keep your eyes on this. It'll move to pending. It still didn't fire the event. Did hot reload not take? Is that what happened? I blame hot reload. You there. Re-add the posted date. We will hit the breakpoints. Remove the posted date. Yeah. Suddenly. Okay. If it wasn't an error, patch the current transaction with the updated record, which just means, apply all of the properties that we got back from the server for our successful transaction. Actually, that's a lie. Apply Uh-huh. We need to apply the data. There is not going to be a data on this because on post, I'm only returning the record ID. For update dot posted date. No, I'm doing it right. Okay. So we're getting a clone of the record that we're trying to modify, which, make sure that we're not using the same references to all of the objects for that particular object. We're updating that object, sending that as part of the request. If it's successful, we're using that object to update the existing, which should mean that in the patch method, we're updating the posted date to be null in this case. Correct. Correct. We're hiding the dialog. We're saying show changed. Confirm. There's an error that happens on confirm dot invoke async. And we know that because it jumped over this step directly, or it jumped from this step to the end instead of hitting the notify state change. So I'm going to put this here first just so that it runs, but we're probably going to want to keep an eye on this thing here, which it's taking a minute to update. So I can put a breakpoint on that. Maybe wrap it in a try finally. Yeah. We'll definitely do some error handling. The thing is, I don't want to use too many try catches for things that aren't supposed to throw exceptions. Like if it's going to throw an exception, I want to see it. I want it to happen. Unless it's something that we're planning for, like a HTTP request not able to reach the server, or a cancellation token being canceled during a HTTP request. But in this case, we weren't expecting any kind of exceptions to happen on this step. So we would want to debug that. Okay, let's put the posted date back in. And now I still have the other breakpoint set. I do. And now when we remove the posted date and it is successful, we will notify transactions changed, which means that that should update on our next render. Then, oh, that's really weird. So it didn't even hit the onConfirm.invoke async because onConfirm click doesn't have any delegates. My bag. Enjoy your coffee. I'll be here for another 30 minutes, 25-ish minutes. So my guess is we didn't even have a delegate for onConfirm closed anyway. Where is this thing used? Confirm toggle pending mobile. Nowhere, that's where. What? How's that even possible? Oh, wait, it is right here. Okay. On confirm click does have a delegate. What? 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 Whatever. Let's just check our UI. It didn't update. Are we still? Oh, because we're still in a breakpoint. Still didn't update. Man, forget you. Am I even looking at the right record? Transaction date 223 from checking to credit card in the amount of 2632. Yes, I am looking at the right record. Okay, so what we can do then is check our callback method that is supposedly listening for transaction history changes, which would be this one here. And remove. Accidentally click sort. Ops. No, wrong one. Remove sort. Okay, cancel. I think that was another issue that I just kind of glazed over. Glossed over? Some phrase. Notify transactions changed should eventually raise the event for the event listener that is breakpointed here. So on transaction history changed, actually we're going to step into just to verify that that is what this method does. It didn't even hit my breakpoint that I just set. Notify transactions changed. Control F12 takes me to this. I put a breakpoint here. Why you didn't do the thing? That's really interesting, isn't it, honey? So that time it did. You know what? I'm going to say that it's because Hot Reload is not applying the code changes that I just made. And we're going to relunch. I have some leftover lunch. Yes, yes, yes. Breakpoint. Okay, you there. How is that raising a transaction history changed event? We need to figure that out too. Okay, one thing at a time. Removing you hits the breakpoint for current response. If that is successful, patch the transaction, hide the UI, the dialogue, notify everyone that is listening to the event on transaction history changed that it has happened. And this time, yeah, it just hit the breakpoint this time. And it just now hit the invoke async. So again, I really think that it was an issue with not taking the code changes while we were busy debugging. And if we go back here, we get out of breakpoints. Dude, run. F5. Then we'll see that it actually updated. Let's see it happen in real time now. Yatta. Donut watch. Donut watch. Donuts. Why? Why must I crave baked goods? Baked goods. And coffee. I could do with more coffee. Okay, keep your eye on this transaction history record. Pending to 22, 2023. Still need to get the enter key to work there. It updated, and now we remove it back to pending. It went to pending, and let's re-add the date. collapse the side drawer, remove it here, re-expand the side drawer, and that is now pending. Done. Okay, so let's check in this small change. Then we'll fix this button being on top of the modal. Like so. Fixed logic for updating transaction history records when they are edited in transaction history. Too many words. Too many words for a commit message. What is this guy thinking? And of course, I did a commit and push. Whatever. Okay, so fixing this should be as easy as pie. More baked goods. Because I don't want to force a z-index to just keep growing, I really like to keep control of all of the z-indexes that appear in the application that I set manually. I don't want to just say, hey there, modal thing in shared components. I don't want you to just like bounce your way all the way up to something like z-index 100, 1,000,001. Because, you know, that's the right answer, right? To make sure that it stays on top of everything. But what if I use it somewhere else where I want it to be behind a thing? What I'm going to do is for my app only, in my SAS, I have a card override. Yeah, I'll put a modals override using Shift F2, which will show up any minute now. I don't think I actually pushed it. With a modal override. It's plural. Nope, singular. Dot sass. And we're going to say Dutch. What is the class for this? Modal wrapper, modal content. And actually, I do want the modal wrapper itself to be the thing that gets a Z index because I even want the darkened background to be on top. So I would like for this to be one more than the flyout. And I bet you I set the flyout Z index in the component. I did. I'll keep it for now. But I'm just going to set it to one more than the flyout. And what I'm probably going to end up doing is, and actually I'll do it now. In my root, this is where I will have my default Z indexes. And we'll have a flyout Z index. And that's going to be 2. And a modal Z index. Which is going to be, just because I'm lazy, var layout Z index plus 1. So it's going to be whatever I set my flyout Z index to be plus 1. And I will use this in my modal override. And then we just need to make sure that the modal override shows up in my CSS. Cool. So we should see that our CSS got updated. And now we should have a modal wrapper with the Z index of var modal wrapper, which translates to in our application. This, damn it, it didn't work. Modal wrapper. Oh, yeah, here it is. Modal wrapper, modal Z index is not defined. Oh. Wait. It didn't compile root. I didn't save root. So I'm constantly hearing about people in VS Code having issues where they forget to save a file. But I rarely hear people that use Visual Studio full IDE have that issue. I just had that issue. Anyway, it is now defined as flyout index plus 1, which eventually translates to 3, and you can see that it is sitting on top of the button for the flyout. Yay! Fixed. Modal. Fizzed. Fizzed. Z index to be on top of layout. Full VS has some magic feature where it compiles your unsaved changes usually. Yep, which also forms the terrible habit. Absolutely agree. Especially with like when CSS autosync is actually working the way it's intended, you can make a change to a CSS file without saving and it'll show up immediately in your UI. I've lost at least a full hour of my life troubleshooting something in VS Code twice because I didn't save the file. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you, but I know the feeling now. Thankfully, like for me, it was easier to notice here than in like code and like stuff. Live, laugh, love, or whatever. Yes. I would like to choose the whatever for 200. Open with code. Drink coffee. That is the right answer. So for example, if you make a change here, I think it's a little bit harder for you to tell. Like, I'm not looking up here very often to know that the file has been modified. I'm looking over here. And that's because I use vertical tabs. Yeah, me either. So one thing that I used to really like was having save on change, but then we got hot reload, and that will often pull up the message that says you made a change that doesn't work with the app or needs to be, yeah, anyway. Your changes have errors when it's constantly trying to do the hot reload stuff down here. Because let's say that you worked on something in here that uses a variable that you need to define back here in the code behind file, and you're like, well, I'll define it after I put it here. I usually make those changes, don't save, go back here, create the variable, save this file, go here, save this file, and then everything works. But you don't get that option. You don't get that option if you have save on change. Or actually, the save that happens within here is save on when you switch files. That's the one that I used to love. Then I did make another mistake when I did that though. Yeah, Control Shift S, absolutely. The other mistake that I made with that is I had that feature turned on where when you click off and go to a different file, it'll save. If I had usings that I was getting ready to use, I also said clean up on save. And so those wouldn't have been used. And when I saved, they would get removed. And I'm like, I wanted the using there. Thankfully, that's gotten a little bit easier for us because now they give us IntelliSense for objects that aren't in the current namespace but exist in the application. So you can still see the things that you were going to be looking for by adding the namespace first and then looking for the method or property that you were looking for, which is nice. I'm not angry at that. But I'm still not going to do cleanup on save or save on change file anymore. You know? But anyway, so we did it. We modified the row again while I was talking through that. No, just compare. Just tell me. What did I change? I got rid of a... No, I added a character return. I don't want that. I don't want that. Line break, carriage return, whatever. New line. So we made all the changes for this particular issue, which is filter transaction history by account, which is simply, it's not making it pretty. It is adding the functionality that when you click on an account summary, an account in the account summary component, you get the transaction history grid with the filtered list of transactions for that specific account. And that is successful. So we're going to go ahead and do a PR because we don't commit directly to main. I almost called it master again. You guys are my reviewer. I'm selecting you. Yes, the master. Should be in this project here. And this will complete number 15. And what that does by typing in completes number 15 is it will associate this pull request with issue number 15. And so now we can see it down here. Why is it there twice? I don't understand why it's there twice. And you guys are reviewing my code changes to make sure that there was nothing broken. When you guys do, for those of you that have a code review process in your teams, I don't know if I asked this before, so I apologize if I already did. Do you actually check out the branch that the person doing the PR is trying to submit? Or do you only review the code here? Or is it one of those it depends situations? Oh yeah, you guys are reviewing this and you're saying, yeah, that file looked good. That's just the min CSS and CSS, so that gets generated because of this. And the changes in here look great. Good job. This is a Razor file. I do code check in PR page, then UAT test after pulling. Yeah, we don't have, I would love that kind of process. So like for me, I always check out the branch and build it on my machine and then test the functionality that they say is supposed to work. Even though we do have a QA. Oh yeah, look at you guys go, man. You're just reviewing these like nothing. You're fast. I bet you're even compiling the code in your head by reviewing these changes like this. Gotta click all the boxes. We got some good responses. Solo says, I've never actually checked out a branch to do a code review unless someone specifically asked me to. Interesting. Life Coding says we used to actually test the functionality during code review, and if it wasn't testable, we'd get them to make the changes to make it testable. I also rubber stamp things allegedly without really looking at the code, but I warned the person that it's a complete rubber stamp. Mine is I reviewed your code, I checked out the branch. However, I'm not sure if these changes will affect things like the command line. So we have a way to run our app via command line without the UI only. And some of the changes that are made are things that update the way that tests run in the UI, but might also affect the way that tests run in command line. So I always caveat with that, and I'm like, you might want to get someone else to review the backend functionality is still maintained kind of stuff. So then Master Rat said, most of my day is checking PRs though, so I can see why people won't do that. Yeah. And like ours is we have 3 developers, 3 active developers, and we request PRs from each other. And I usually end up being the one to do the reviews for the ones that are requested of me and others because it's part of work for me. And it's like, yeah, I might be in the middle of a thing, so I'm going to finish the thing that I'm working on first, and then if I see that it hasn't been reviewed yet, I'll review it. But I don't find it to be as much of a disruption as long as I'm not in the middle of doing a thing, because it still feels like normal expected work to me, at least for our team. Scott said, we would check out each other's branches and reviewing their code, and once reviewed, merge into the shared develop branch. So you guys use Gitflow, I would assume? Uh, yes. And Equality said, if the PR is significant size, I want to experience a full IDE experience during code reviews. I want to build warnings, or I want to see build warnings, IDE suggestions, effects on build time. Yeah. Oh, man. So for me, it's an always thing, though. I always check out the branch, regardless of if it's a small change or a large change. I also review in here the actual code itself because, you get a nice summary of what was changed as opposed to having to use view history in this, which I don't mind either. But I just use this for making sure it builds, making sure none of the functionality was lost that the changes might have touched. I just ask if a commit has been tested in various scenarios I can foresee, then I trust their answer. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if our actual tests were better, which we haven't had an opportunity to improve our tests. But we also do, like I said, we also have a QA person that once it gets merged into main, then the QA person uses that to verify. And we also update an Azure DevOps work item. So the QA person is notified via that DevOps work item that a fix has been made, test it in this build or later, and let us know if it doesn't work. And then they get assigned the work item. Life Coding said, I've reviewed a 1200 file pull request, and after 100 or 300 GitHub stops loading diffs. Oh, oh. I try not to touch that many files. Like, if I do, it's because I modified a CSS class and said, all right, now every single whatever gets this CSS class, and maybe it appears in almost all of the UI. Which, if that's the case, I would find another way to do it. Like, have a class that everything that is this thing will get the default styling, and then everything that gets this new special class, which is only like 1 or 2 different things, will be exempt from having it, kind of thing. But anyway, not to mention automated unit testing. Absolutely. Yeah, automated builds. We definitely have automated builds. We have a CI pipeline, and it's terrible. Scott says, "Do you know the difference between await invoke async and invoke async, and state has changed?" Yes, I do. So invoke async whatever you put inside of it is I don't 100% know this for sure, but the way that I am using it is that invoke async will switch to the main thread when you're doing whatever it is inside of here. Yes, next question. Let me do this real quick. Review changes, you guys approved it. Clicked submit review. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and merge it so that the work item gets closed. I said work item because now I'm thinking work items. And then we will delete our local branch, or we'll delete the branch here. And then we'll move to main and pool and rebuild. Okay, so now I can answer your question because I'm getting ready to wrap up, but I definitely want to answer that question. Oh, dang it. I hate it when I switch branches while I'm using .NET Watch because sometimes some of the files are still in use and it doesn't actually pull. Okay, so invoke async is a way to switch to the main thread. And since I want any state has changed event actions to happen on my UI thread, which is the main thread, then I use invoke async state has changed. For things that have the potential to be run from another thread that isn't the main thread. We don't have to worry about that with WASM at the moment because there is only one thread in the browser. But if we are doing it in a WPF app, for example, we might have multiple threads that could potentially invoke this method. And so I want to make sure we're running on the UI thread, on a thread that can control the UI elements. The await in front of it is because this method is async. This method is only async because I'm using await in other places. But if this was the last thing that I do, and if this was just the last thing that I do and it's the only thing that I would need to await, then I would just return the task. I wouldn't await it. And then status change by itself is just a synchronous way to invalidate the UI and then say we need a render. So status change doesn't really invoke async doesn't mean you have to use status changed. It's just that I'm using invoke async with status changed as the task to run, or not the task, the method, the synchronous method to run in an asynchronous way on the main thread. Did that answer? Did that help? I hope it did. Yeah, so since I do a lot of invoking events from my state classes, I'm now just pretty much using invoke async for all of my status changes by default, even if it's just inside of like on after render async. I would still opt to use await invoke async status change, even though I'm pretty sure the on after render async can only be triggered by the UI thread. I haven't seen any performance issues with that, so I'm going to continue that practice unless and until I see any issues. But yeah, that is going to wrap it up. Thank you all for responding to the question about PRs and what you actually do. It's really, really good to know. I did miss a comment though. Live Coding said, my coworker says he generally looks to see if there are updated or new unit tests, and if so, he rubber stamps it. If not, he assumes they didn't test it. Oh. Okay. And then to be fair, the guy, I think he was going for .NET Framework to .NET Standard for like 140 projects. Oh. Oh my goodness. I rarely use on after render async. It is not that dangerous. It's dangerous if you put any kind of invoke asyncs without some kind of check, because then it's just going to keep triggering itself. But other than that, it's pretty safe as long as you are protecting yourself. Why aren't these squigglies going away? Anyway, I'm all circling it like you can still see my screen. So thank you, Dukasoft. Baby Raid. Is he streaming? Wait, I don't see him streaming. Yes, he is. He is. He is. He is. Baby Raid. All right, ciao, Solo. I will catch your next stream when I see you go live. I'll most likely still be really, really quiet because during the day I am absolutely swamped with the code changes that I'm doing. But if you feel like it, please feel free to stick around as we raid the one, the only Bit Gamey, Bit Grammarly. I really need to stop typing it into chat because I can easily mistype their names. He is a game developer working in Unity on a game called I Am a Dog, and it is similar to other I Am a type games. And yeah, it's just to experience life as a dog. But the main thing about him is he is a really, really cool person, great personality. He gets hugs all around. He has a lot of interaction stuff on his stream. And yeah, he's just fun too. So feel free to stick around for that. I will post the recording of this stream, to YouTube no sooner than 24 hours after I end the stream. And feel free to hang out on our Discord. You know where the project is located on GitHub. Showed it a few times during the stream. And other than that, I will see you guys on Friday for Community Day. If any of you do want to let me know ahead of time of any topics that you want to discuss, feel free to. Otherwise, I'll just see you on Friday. Okay, that's it for me. Ciao for now. Thank you all so much for being here.